Hello, hello. This is Ben coming to you from New York City. I'm here with part 4 of my mini album tutorial. And this one we're going to make our first page in. So I have a couple of notes here. First, we just a couple of things that I like to usually take care of. And this is how I work. I make notes like this, but so you're getting a pretty good glimpse into my process. First, take out one page of each cutout page and cut it up. So basically I did that. I like to have them handy as I start to make all of my pages. I like to just know what I'm dealing with. So I've got all those here. There's 2 different pages of cutouts in this pad, so those were 2 pages that I cut out. And then secondly, it says identify cover paper. Now, I'm not really going to do that in this pad because there's 48 sheets, 2 of each, of 24 different designs. If you were dealing with a smaller pad and fewer designs, you might want to just go ahead and, especially if one is like specifically the cover, you might want to just go pull that out and just save it so you don't accidentally cut into all of the sheets that you want to use for the cover. You don't want to get ahead of yourself like that. So that's what I do at the beginning. So I've also sketched out here my idea for my first page. So you can see, I mean, you know, you're not going to see great, but it's basically a page with 2 flip outs on either side and a pocket in the middle. And I've identified here that I want the pocket to be 3 inches tall. I want one of these side flaps to be 5 inches, one to be 4 inches. And then I'll close it with a swing tab closure. I thought about doing a magnet closure, but I changed my mind. We're going to do a swing tab. So, and then I write this down too. I basically figure out the dimensions of all of my paper first. Because it's easier to just cut everything at once. So with the cardstock, I want 1 piece of 8x5, 1 piece of 8x6, and those are for the 2 flaps. So I have a 4-inch flap and a 5-inch flap. I'm going to add 1 inch of width onto those. So they're going to be 8x5 to make a 4-inch flap and 8x6 to make the 5-inch flap. Then I also want the pocket. It's going to be 8 inches wide by 3 inches tall. So there's 2 ways to do the pocket, and I'll explain both of those. I cut out pieces for both of those. And then basically your decorative paper. I've made a decision here that's going to carry throughout. And then I've decided to make 1/16 inch borders around. So basically I'm going to have, take 1/8 of an inch off to make a 1/16 border. Does that make sense? So when I'm talking about these flaps here, the flap is going to be 4 inches by 8 inches, so I'm cutting the paper at 3 7/8 by 7 7/8. This will give me a very tiny little border of craft around the page, a 1/16 inch border. I like that. I think that looks really nice. So that's what I have down here as my deco paper. I have the flaps, the 3 7/8 by 7 7/8, 4 7/8 by 7 7/8, and we want 2 of each of those because there are 2 sides to those flaps. We want the base. So basically the paper that's going to be right here behind the pocket, it's going to be 7 7/8 inch wide, and basically I'm going to make it 5.5 inches long, just enough to go behind the top of that pocket so you don't see the edge. I might make it a little longer. I might make it 6 just to give me a little bit more wiggle room. And in fact, I am. So I'm going to just write that down right now. Yeah. 6 inches by 7 7/8. Just so I don't run out of room. And then finally for the pocket, I don't know yet because I have to pick a decorative edge. And if I use a paper punch, it's going to reduce the amount of decorative paper. So I'm going to have to wait on that one. Okay. So I've already cut, I've got my page base here. This is what I'm going to glue this stuff to. And I've got my flaps here. So I've got my 8x5 and my 8x6 flap. So on your two flaps, you're going to get your scoreboard out, and you're going to score 1 inch on each of your long sides. Okay. So now when I fold this over, basically the way this works is this flap is going to glue down right here. Okay. And then this is going to be my flap that opens. Okay. Now you want to glue this down before you start with your decorative paper because you want this seam to be covered up by the deco paper. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do those. I'm going to do my little trick, not really a trick, but where I kind of cut a little bit off that corner. So again, you see that I'm making that edge right there. I'm going to do that for both of these. And now we're going to go ahead and stick these down. Okay, and we're covering this with decorative paper, so I don't care that I wrote on these, but here's my 8x6 flap. So basically, this, now that I scored this inch to be the part that gets glued down, now this is my 5-inch flap, and this is going to be my 4-inch flap. So I'm going to use some wet glue here. I used to use score tape and ATG for just about everything. But then it got hot and humid and everything started to fall apart. So I became a wet glue convert a few months ago, and I'm just not going back. It's it works a lot better. It's so much cheaper, and you get that like little bit of wiggle room, right? I can still move this around before I really push down hard. Okay. So now I've got these two flaps. You also want to make sure that you glued the flaps on the open edges. So you want to remember that your open edges are to the side and your closed edges are to the top and the bottom. So now I've got this. Okay. And now we're going to do the pocket. So there's two ways to do the pocket. The first way is to just glue this down. Just glue it right here. Glue it here and here and here and on the bottom. You end up losing a little bit of width on your pocket and a little bit of depth because the glue is going to take up a little bit of that. The other way to do your pocket that doesn't sacrifice any dimension is to add, I use a 1/2 inch, but to add a 1/2 inch on the sides that you're going to glue. So a 1/2 inch over here, a 1/2 inch over here, and a 1/2 inch on the bottom. So basically this makes this 9 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall. But what we're going to do is score a 1/2 inch on either side, and then a 1/2 inch down the bottom. Okay, and this scoreboard is mini and it's just not big enough, but I make do. So now, as we kind of fix these corners, I'm going to cut out these little squares that the scoring made. Okay? Okay, so I've got that, and now when I fold this in, I'm left with a pocket that's also 8x3. But this way, when I glue it down with these tabs, I don't sacrifice any width or depth because the tag can go into this little fold. okay? Now on this one, I'm not going to use this. One of the benefits to just gluing it down is you end up with a pretty tight pocket, and because I'm going to be folding these flaps over it, I want it to be pretty flat. This, you get a little bit of extra pop-up from, and the pocket can kind of bend up a little bit. I don't want that here, so I'm going to put that to the side. I'll probably use it later. I'm actually, now that I think about it, going to, and I'm being really scatterbrained here, I'm going to cut like 1/16 of an inch off of this pocket width. Because see, when I try to close these flaps, since it's exact, it kind of just, it doesn't fit all the way. It buckles up a little bit, and I want this to be able to close flat. So I'm just going to pull this out, my paper trimmer, put like, you know, really just a smidgen that I'm going to cut off. And you can see there how much I cut off, just like this little matchstick kind of width. And that's just enough to allow the two sides to close cleanly. Okay? So now I want to decide what kind of edge to put at the top of my pocket. And I'm going to use this Fisker's Border Punch. So that's what I'm left with. I really like this look, this really simple sort of bracket. I think it fits well with the travel theme, and it's clean. So before I glue the pocket down though, I need my base pattern paper to go in here. So let's talk a little bit now about selecting my pattern paper. Okay, so I don't have a really fancy way. Usually I just take the papers as they come, okay? Now, with the amount of paper I'm gonna need to cut out to make the fronts and backs of the flaps, the base, and the pocket, I'm gonna need 3 sheets, I think. So I'm going to take this first one. Ooh, it's not really a clean edge on the top of that paper pad. Oh well, that's fine. I'm gonna leave this here. I'm going to take, you know what, actually, because the color scheme of these two is so similar, I think I'm going to skip this one for now. I'm going to move on to this golden yellow color. I'm going to take one of those. And I'm going to take one of these navy chevron. Although that, you know, this is a little busy, and none of these pieces are really all that small. So I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to go with this. I love this one anyway. I want, another thing too is I like my first page to be pretty high impact. So that's just me. So these are the 3 papers I'm going to use. Now the first thing we need is going to be the dropping things. The base, the piece of paper that goes right here. That's going to be the backing of this base page, and I think I'm going to use this for that. Then I'm going to use these for the 2 flaps. So give me a second, I'll come right back, and I'll have all of my pattern paper cut out. Okay, I'm back. I have cut out my pattern paper, as you can see here, and I've gone ahead and kind of done a few other things too. So what I've done is I've cut out the pattern paper, and remember earlier I said that I wanted to kind of have everything have this ticket style edge to it, and that's what I've done. I've gone ahead and used my ticket corner punch to make the corners of these flaps have this ticket feature. So just a little bit about like why I chose these papers. I chose those 3 different papers, and I want to show off all 3 different colors, but I don't want it to get too monochromatic on me either. So I've liked this a lot, actually. The bottom corner of that page had this little compass on it. I think this looks really nice. So, and then the yellow works so well with that burgundy. So I think this looks good. And when you open it up, let's see, it's gonna look like this. So I've got on either side, I've got the dark blue, and then I've got the backing is this, and here's my pocket. And notice that I've taken the pattern paper for the pocket and also cut it in the, as you can see, in that bracket upper crest with the border punch. So it's just gonna lay flat. And remember, I had to cut a little bit off the sides of the pattern paper too in order for this to lay perfectly flat. So now I get to glue stuff down. So as I'm going through, I can kind of just glue it all down willy-nilly, but the one thing that I do want to make sure of is that because of this swing tab situation, what I want to do is first figure out where I want this swing tab. So this is how I want this to close, right? So I want the swing tab to be here to close on top of this. And I already cut out my swing tab. It's this little tab right here. I cut it out of the Tim Holtz Tiny Tabs and Tags die. It's this teeny little kind of tag looking thing right here. And I cut it out of chipboard and then just inked it up with my Tim Holtz walnut stain distress ink. So what I want to make sure that I do though is glue everything down except for this page here, because, and I'm going to put a big X here to remind me not to glue that down yet, because that's going to be the back side of the brad. So I'm going to pull this over here. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to do is glue my pocket down. So first, I'll do this with you. Let me just glue this down. And this is a case where I do still use some dry adhesive. When it's just adhering paper down, I will use my ATG. So, and you also just want to pay attention to orientation, right? These kind of go up a very specific way, so I want those pointing up. So there we go. And it kind of has this ugly edge down here from where I pulled it off the paper bit. That's fine, because I'm going to glue this pocket over. So now I'm going to glue this pocket down. So it's really easy. There's not much to it. I just put a really thin line of wet glue on either side and the bottom. So I'm going to stick that down. Again, the nice thing about the wet glue is I've got a minute. Okay, see, and now that that's down, remember, because we cut a little bit off of it, it closes really cleanly. Okay, so that's all there is to the pocket. This is that simple pocket. The pocket's going to be pretty tight, and the mat will fit pretty tightly in it. And now to finish that pocket, all I have to do is adhere this down, which I'm just going to do really quickly while I'm with you here with you. Using my ATG, and I even used the ATG right along the edge, and you can, I don't know if you can see, but the ATG kind of got between the little things, and I have this little hook tool, and I just kind of like push the ATG glue like back. Actually, it's probably easier if I do it on this side. I just pull it back down so it's not showing on the outside, but this does get it as close to the edge as possible. I don't want all those little points up there just hanging out and not being really stuck down. So this might be a little overkill, but I don't know, that's how I like to do it. And then, you know, try to match it up as well as you can. But I think that's a pretty good looking pocket right there, and then you'll be able to stick whatever mat down in there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and glue down all the other papers except for this one, and we'll come back and talk about swing tabs. Okay, so I'm back. I've glued down almost all my paper. And remember, it's basically except this sheet right here, because the brad's going to come through the back of there. So now I'm closing it. This is how I want it to be closed. I want this big flap over this one. Right, so my swing tab is going to be here, swing open, and then that will open. Okay? So, this is how I do it, and this is so not fancy at all. It's really basic, but I hope you're not too offended. But I'm really letting you into my crazy methods here. I've got this tool. It's a paper piercer on one end and a brad setter on the other. So I'm going to basically get this to where I want, and I'm eyeballing this here. Nothing fancy here, right? That's just enough to let me swing over and out, okay? And that's about halfway. And I'm basically just going to kind of like use this and just boink, mark a little hole. You could also do it with a pen if you didn't want to put a hole into it. So I can just mark a little spot there. Take this away. Now I can see, I don't know if you can see, but I can see the little dot that I made. And I'm using this teeny tiny little brad. Can you even see that? It's teeny tiny. It's from Recollections by Michaels. It's a set that I got that has, these are sort of normal sized brads, and these are those teeny tiny mini ones. I'm using that today. So I'm going to now take my paper piercer tool and just poke a hole right through where I made that little mark. Okay, so now I'm ready to just put my brad through the hole on the tab, and then put the brad through this hole, and now turn it over, and I'm going to use this little brad setter tool to just make sure I get the brad really open. Okay. So now I have this swing tab, and I can just test it, but I mean, it works like a swing tab is supposed to, right? Pull up that swing tab, and now the page opens. So now all I have to do is fill this in, pop this paper here, which I'm not going to show you, but I'm going to use ATG and pop that right there. And basically the last thing I need to do is figure out what's going to go in this great little pocket right here. Basically, I've got two choices. I have my leftover paper. Now, I don't want to make a photo mat out of this to put in here because it's too matchy. So I'm going to put that to the side. Same thing here. This is from the pocket. And these scraps aren't quite big enough. Maybe I'll do something with this. This is almost 4 inches wide. So maybe I'll make a 4x6 mat with that. I do have my cut-aparts though. And I've got this great cut-apart that I love that came with the paper like this. And I think this is really good to start out your book with a big journal spot so you can really write out something at the beginning of your travel album talking about your vacation. Now this is a little too tall. I'm going to have to trim this down a little bit, but I really like this. So I'm going to use this as a mat to put in there. So I'm going to do those things, and I'll be right back with my finished page. Okay, and here we go. Here is our first page. I think it looks really great. I might, juice it up a little bit at some point on the front, but I usually like to get all the construction done and then maybe do some embellishment later. So that's what it looks like. The swing tab flips open, and that reveals this. And I just love doing things like this where you've got this really sort of warm color scheme going on in here, right? Where you've got this mustardy yellow and this burgundy, and you open it up and it's almost like the blue is a surprise, this kind of coolness coming through. I don't know. Maybe that's cheesy, but I like kind of keeping things like that. And then we've got two photo mats here in the pocket. One of this was the cut apart that I cut down a little bit, and the other one is this. And I really am liking this kind of using the ticket corners on everything. I think it looks really great. So there you have it, page number 1. I'm going to come back to you real soon with page number 2, and I hope you all are enjoying this. As always, feel free to let me know if you have any questions or comments. I love hearing from all of you, and happy crafting, and I'll see you soon. Bye.